what exactly is happening. Yesterday, we witnessed the National Assembly, where, of course, it was all about various issues within the transport sector, what is being done to ensure that the roads that have been constructed will be maintained properly. And we've had a number of issues that the minister explained as measures that are meant to make sure that our roads will remain in a good state. But now, let's get straight to the Senate session and follow proceedings.
You are undertaking out there in terms of floods and other things. May I know, Honorable Deputy Minister, when the Mutawa civil servants housing flats in Uzumba, Maramba, Pfungwe are going to be completed, and how the new occupants are going to be selected? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to thank the Honorable Senator for the pertinent question about the housing deliveries in our ministry. Mr. President, guided by the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Amendment number 20 of 2013, the government is obliged to ensure that every citizen has access to adequate shelter. Therefore, shelter is a basic need. As the ministry, we provide shelter for work, housing, and also social amenities. The honorable member has raised a very pertinent issue about the civil servant accommodation. He's asking on when are we going to finish the Mutawa flats in Marsh East, which is a rural area. Mutawa flat is a pilot project. It's the first of its kind, the whole country. There is no other rural area which has got the same project. The Mutawa flats will be finished very soon. I cannot give the exact details, Mr. President, because we had a few challenges in terms of resourcing the completion of the Mutawa flats. However, I would like to assure the honorable member that the government and the ministry is working tirelessly to make sure that our civil servants get decent accommodation. Then on other projects of housing, the president recently commissioned the Dzivarasekwa flats, which was meant for the flood victims, Harare flood victims, but we also managed to accommodate some civil servants because the units were very few. Very soon we'll be commissioning the Marondela flats, which is for the civil servant as well. We are working on building more high-rise flats in Malbarin and Beitbridge and Lubani for civil servant. I would like to assure the honorable member that the government is working with the whole government approach to ensure efficiency in housing delivery. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Zindi.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Honorable, can you please remain standing?
Supplementary.
You may take your seat. Supplementary, Senator Chawang.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The study, Honorable Minister, in terms of household occupation we stand at 58%. And also the study on the larger occupied housing ownership stands at 32% countrywide. So what is your ministry vis-a-vis the national policy doing in order to mitigate the gap, which is quite wide, and also this scheme which we are talking about, are these houses civil servants going to get the ownership title deeds of these schemes that are already underway?
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Honorable Senator Chabang, for the question on how the Ministry of National Housing is going to bridge the gap between the shortage of accommodation. As I have said before, that the government and the Ministry of National Housing is working tirelessly to work on the backlog, because we have a backlog of 2.5 million houses. However, the ministry is working with the private partnership to bridge the gap. We have companies who are into housing construction. For example, we have CBZ, we have NASA, we have Fidelity, and many other companies which I have not mentioned here, who are also into housing infrastructure. Then on the schemes, the government has got 4 or more schemes in terms of housing. We have Housing Guarantee Fund. The Housing Guarantee Fund is to bridge the gap that the Honorable Member is talking about. We also have National Housing Fund, which builds properties and houses for civil servants. We also have GP, a fund which builds government property, and the GP houses are mainly for government. They are not supposed to be an individually property. However, the Housing Guarantee Fund and the National Housing Fund, there is a point where when a civil servant, maybe he or she has stayed for 2 years, she is allowed to purchase the property. Then for government pool property, there is the civil servant are allowed only to stay there when he or she is working for that relevant department, which will be allocated that house. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Honorable Senator Zindi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question
And
through
after
you.
that, Honorable Senator Bature.
My question through you, Mr. President, is directed to Deputy Minister for Veterans. Of recent, we've read in the press of 4 veterans' children not attending school simply because government has failed to pay for their school fees. What has been done up to now as the situation is obtaining on the ground? I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister Ngube. Honorable Minister Moyo, Headman Moyo. You knew I was talking about, you should have just stood up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to thank the Honorable Senator Honorable Zindi for that pertinent question.
Order.
Yes.
Honorable Minister Ngube, can you please switch off your mic? Thank you. Please.
Thank you again, Mr. President, for the question which has been asked by Honorable Zindi. Mr. President, the children of war veterans are considered for their education welfare. We have made a presentation to Cabinet for them to be considered. Earlier on, the ministry used to say they pay up to 18 years, but of late, children are paid up to any level where he or she wishes to educate herself or himself. Thank you, Mr. President.
Minister, I think the Honorable Senator is asking what your ministry is doing to ensure that the children of war veterans fees are paid, if I got the question right.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, children of war veterans are guaranteed not to be expelled from school.
They are?
Yeah, they are. They are guaranteed.
They are guaranteed?
They are guaranteed not to be expelled from school for non-payment.
Okay.
Supplementary.
Okay, the original. Supplementary, Honorable Zindi.
Regei nditaura hangu nerurimi rwamai. Ndiri kuti inini through you, Mr. President, taverenga zvakare mumapepa nhau. Ndoda kuteererwa.
Honorable Zindi, you have the floor.
Mazvita mubati wechigaro. Ndanga ndiri kuti ini regai nditaure nerurimi rwamai vanyatsondinzwa zvandoda kureva. Ndiri kuti taverenga futi social media mapepa nhau kuti vana vama veterans vakadzingwa zvikoro nekuti hurumende yakakoniwa kuti ibhadharire school fees zvinova zviri pamutemo. Saka chii chiri kuitwa kuti school fees iwayo anga achibhadharwa? Ndo mubvunzo wangu Mazvita.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I made it clear to Honorable that children of war veterans are guaranteed not to be expelled from school for non-payment. And moreover, schools just opened, I think 2 days back. We have not seen any children who have been expelled so far. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Supplementary, Mr. President.
Supplementary, Honorable Pulu.
Mr. President, in what way are the children of war veterans guaranteed not to be expelled from school? That is to say, by which instrument or policy or secular in particular are they guaranteed not to be expelled? And what does the ministry do if children are then expelled despite that guarantee?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, whenever a child for a war veteran is expelled from school, he or the parent should approach our ministry for facilitation. We used to have challenges of funding from the Treasury, but now things have come to normal. So I repeat to say, Mr. President, children of war veterans are guaranteed not to be expelled from school.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Parliamentary.
Order. I am told Honorable Mavunga made a statement in the National Assembly on that issue. I'm going to request the clerk to ensure that Honorable Mavunga comes to this chamber and makes the same statement which she made in the National Assembly to address this issue once and for all. Thank you. I am told, well, we now have two more Deputy Ministers who have joined the chamber. Deputy Minister of Justice, Honorable Mazungunye. And then the Deputy Minister of Deputy Minister of Youth, Honorable Mpamanga. So the menu is now a bit bigger, and that should satisfy our needs. The next person on my list is the Honorable Senator Gbature.
Mazvita mubati wechigaro. Mubvunzo wangu uri kudzokera zvakare kuna Deputy Minister of War Veteran. Wanga wakangoda kunangana newabvunzwa na Honorable Zindi, but I'll shift kune mumwe wacho wananga ndinawo. Mubvunzo wangu uri kuti tatarisana nemwaka wemvura iye zvinezvi. Unoita kuti ma-war veteran akawaniswa minda yekurima wawane chokuita mumwaka wemvura zvinoenderana nenguva iyoyo, zvinova zvokurima muminda. Iri ndiyo minda zvakare inozobatiridza kuti vana vechikoro vanga vachataurwa wawanirwe mari dzemafizi nekudya nekudii. Saka ndiri kuti kune here zvikwanisiro zvakagadzirirwa kuti ma-war veterans wari kuma A1, wari kuma A2 nevamwe vasina kuwana minda wari muma-villages wakwanise kuwana zvikwanisiro zvokuti wakwanise kuzenge wachirima munguva yekunaya. Mazvita henyu.
Thank you, Senator. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the pertinent question which has been asked by Honorable Senator. Mr. President, we are assured by the Minister of Agriculture that this year war veterans will get their impulse one time, but they have to liaise with our PFOs and also our DFOs. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Minister. I now have Senator Tongo Gara, Senator Fanwell. Dijo, ndagona. Chindirumbidzeyo kana ndagona. Just a minute, Senator Fanwell, and then the Senator Chakabuda, yes. The Honorable Senator Tongo Gara.
Master zvenyu, Mr. President, mubvunzo wangu wakanangana na Deputy Minister weDefense. Mr. President, tinoziva tese kuti mauto ndivo vanotichengetedza muno, asi kwavanogara kwakasiyana siyana vachiroja unonzwa tsitsi nezvinenge zvichiitika. Saka mubvunzo wangu woti iwo Nai, Honorable Minister, accommodation yemauto yakamira sei kuti iko vawanewo pekugara panenge pari nani. Vari kuita levies here neMinistry yeNational Housing iri kuvakira macivil servants dzimba kuitira kuti iko mauto vaiswewo papriority list. Mazvita zvenyu.
Mazvita, Honorable Senator Tongogara. Before I give the floor to the relevant minister, let me advise the Senate that we have been joined by one more Deputy Minister. That's the Deputy Minister of Finance and Investment Promotion, Honorable Mnangagwa. Welcome. The Honorable Deputy Minister of Defense, Honorable General Maihlome.
Thank you very much, Honorable President of the Senate. And I would like to thank the Honorable Senator Tongogara for the very, very pertinent question relating to accommodation for defense forces. Yes, accommodating the defense forces has been a major challenge. I'm sure senators will recall that the last cantonment area that was built in this country.
Senator Mlochkwa, switch off your mic, please.
What is it? I think honorable senators will recall that the last cantonment area that was built for the armed forces or defense forces was in the mid-90s, completed, that is 5 Brigade in the battlefields area. But since then, efforts have been made to improve accommodation facilities in the old camps. We are also embarking on housing projects in certain cantonment areas, particularly Tsivarasekwa. We have houses and flats that we are constructing using our own resources as Minister of Defense and funded by government. We have flats and houses for non-commissioned members of the Defense Forces. We also have Cranbourne West, where we have accommodation that has been put up for officers or up to field officers rank. And we try as much as possible to accommodate general officers and senior air force officers outside the cantonment areas. We have accommodation facilities that are also being constructed at Imbizo. These will also be flats and blocks of houses. The challenge we face is that of funding, inadequate funding from Treasury. It has been coming in drips and drabs. But I want to assure this Senate that in the next few weeks we shall be opening or commissioning the houses at Tsivarasekwa camp for the national non-commissioned members. We are also trying to rehabilitate the other cantonment areas like William Dangana camps in Pechnaf and 1-3 Battalion at Wange. These are camps that were set up in the early 80s and were largely based on asbestos, what we used to call Msana Enzo. But they've outlived their usefulness. Some are broken, and even their ablution facilities in serious want. So we entered into a contract 2 years back with suppliers of materials, tunnel asbestos in particular, to provide the materials and have subcontractors rehabilitating those camps. But the long-term plan for the defense forces, or the medium to long-term plan, is to have our own construction brigade that will embark on providing accommodation not only for the defense forces, but also the general populace. The plans are at an advanced stage for the setting up of this construction brigade. And we believe that we should be able to provide that such accommodation by 2030. We should also be saying our soldiers or defense forces are fully accommodated. I would say for now, this is what we have. We request that honorable senators would, when we request for these budgets, also come fight in our corner
and assist us in pleading our case for adequate resources for funding uniformed forces, in particular defense forces. But that's not all. You should also recall that we have challenges even accommodating our members when they are deployed, because they don't move with their barracks. But when they are deployed on certain tasks, particularly along the border corridors, we require items like tentage or temporary field accommodation. Those are challenges that we face. We wish that the nation understands that defense forces cannot fend for themselves. Defense forces have to be provided for. Because at the end of the day, the security and the peace that we enjoy, it is because the defense forces are well motivated and doing their work instead of concentrating on finding means of survival. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Supplementary, Senator Swanda. Okay, I'll start with Senator Swanda and then I'll come to you.
Ngiyabonga Mr. President. Ngiyayizwa kakhulu imizamo olayo ngabesibutho. Abebutho balendawo zokuhlala kathe siyabalungiselela izindawo zabo ukuthi bahlale kuhle, balempahla zokugqoka ama uniform, nxa behleze ezinkambeni njalo bayaphiwa ukudla. Kungani kanti kathesi sikhanya amaviki esiyaphela kuyabe kulabesibutho bengene endaweni zento ezokugqekeza ezindlini, behamba begijimisa izimota zezimali njalo besenza konke okungekho emthethweni okobudlova. Kuthini bona libanakekela kangaka? Ngiyabonga.
Thank you, the Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you very much, Honorable Senator, for raising that question, which is kind of more specific. It would really require us to do some research because these are particular incidents which I cannot have accurate information on each and every one of them. But nevertheless, the Defense Forces is guided by the Defense Act, their conduct and behavior. So if any one of them is involved in any transgression of whatever kind, the Defense Forces are more than happy to deal with those cases. In fact, in the past, we used to encourage those hotheads to join the military because the military was for the hotheads. But nowadays, the Defense Forces is for the discipline. We encourage those who go to church to come to Defense Forces because we want a disciplined force. In any institution, there are bad apples. And those bad apples, if they are known, we do not condone anything. I don't have the statistics, but if the question were put in writing, we can provide statistics of how many of such bad apples are currently maybe either on remand or have been convicted for committing those offenses. So if the Honorable Senator has specific issues, I request, Honorable President, that they put the matter into writing and then we'll do adequate research. But we don't condone any indiscipline of whatever kind. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Swanda. I hope you take up the challenge and put that question in writing so that you are given a satisfactory answer. Also in the chamber, I'll come to you, Senator Tongogara. You may take your seat. Also joining us is Honorable Swanda, the Deputy Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Science and Technology Development. So the menu is getting bigger and bigger and better. Supplementary, the Honorable Senator Tongogara.
Master Venue, Mr. President. Ndikuda kuti comment ndikuda kungoti nditende Minister wedu weDefense netsanangudzo yavatipa kuti iko mauto edu vawana pekugara pakanaka. Asi chikuru chandinoda kuvatenda nacho zvikuru ndezvekuti iye zvino vane urongwa kuti vabvise misana yenzou pedu veka. Zvimusana zvenzou zviya zvisingaiti kuti ufunge kuti ndo muri kubva muuto anokudhifenda nyika ine runyararo. Saka ndo zvandati ndingovatenda ndichiti rambai makadaro, asi mukurumidze ngazvive zvine nguva yekuti ichabviswa rini ichapera rini motangana iyoyo mashita yanyu Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Tongogara. Next on my list is Honorable Senator Fanwell, then Gotora, and then Chabangu, and then Moyo.
Mr. President, mine was a follow-up question on the conditions of service of the military.
Okay. Supplementary, Senator Gotora.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Like what
the last supplementary on that.
Thank you. Like what Honorable Tongogara has said, I think it is refreshing to hear positive things coming from the Ministry of Defense, because if the defense forces are disgruntled, that is a recipe for disorder. However, just yesterday I gave a lift to some colonel who was complaining about non-availability of their promised motor vehicles 3 or so years ago, and also non-availability of fuel coupons when they are using their own private motor vehicles. He just identified me whilst I gave him a lift. He was in uniform, but I just felt here's a chance for me to ask.
A colonel?
A colonel, yes. Thank you.
Okay, the Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable President, for the opportunity, and thank you very much, Honorable Senator, for the question or the observation. Yes, it is true that conditions of service for the uniformed forces, particularly the armed forces, are not up to the required standard, including issues of vehicles and even personal issue items. Here outside, Mr. President, issues of backroom equipment is in short supply. In the past, when we joined the military ourselves in the 80s, we used to get everything, including your housewife. Well, those who have been in the military know what we mean. When we
I
say
think you
getting
can explain that
housewives. Housewives was the kit, which was not really the marital wife. It was a kit that would assist you to live comfortably in the barracks. It was included your shaving items, sewing. If you lost buttons, you would be able to repair your own uniform, repair your own boots, and such things, spoons and so forth. It was called the housewife because it was a package that would assist you to live comfortably. But all those things are now a thing of the past because of inadequate funding over the years. Yes, military vehicles tend to break down, and also due to wear and tear, normal wear and tear, they get old. And because of funding challenges, some of these colonels, since promotion, have not been afforded the appropriate vehicles. So the defense forces, like every other institution, would be at a dilemma to say, do we promote this person from major to lieutenant colonel, or lieutenant colonel to full colonel, or wait until he has a vehicle? So it's a challenge that we face. But we are working on a program to procure vehicles, all the outstanding vehicles for the members, including members who are entitled to these vehicles on retirement. There are some who have gone without those vehicles. We know even instances where even 1-star, that is brigadier generals or air commodores, who have retired, entitled to vehicles, but they've gone without. These are challenges that we face, but like I said, let's fight in each other's corner so that we all address these issues. But it's an issue that is current, it's live, we're progressing it with relevant ministry, that is Ministry of Finance, and we're fully aware of those challenges. We know the numbers, but we encourage the colonel to follow the correct procedures of raising issues rather than to find that everyone is just told about challenges, lest that information gets into the wrong hands. Because at the end of the day, we have national security to protect. You never know if next time you'll be given a lift by somebody who is hostile to this country. It's appreciable when they tell maybe senators, but next time they will tell somebody who is a foreigner. And that doesn't augur well for our own national security. There are certain things that are discussed within and other things that can be discussed in public. But yes, it's an issue that as honorable senators, you need to be aware of, that we are facing challenges across the board, including on conditions of service. Not just conditions of service, including maybe their remuneration. Defense forces cannot go on strike. Defense forces commit themselves what we call the ultimate sacrifice. If you are told to go forward, there's no argument, there's no question of you disputing or refusing. This is why in Zimbabwe we enjoy so much peace, because defense forces are disciplined, they take instructions and orders. So hence, when they have grievances or disgruntled about their conditions of services, everyone needs to listen. We do not want a dissatisfied or disgruntled force. Otherwise, we cannot be assured or guaranteed of our own national security. Otherwise, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to just briefly explain some of the challenges that we face. I hope this will enrich our arguments when the next budget for 2025 is being considered. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The Honorable Senator Fanwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity to speak out. I have to thank very much to the Ministry of Housing that during the floods time, they built even the houses for Nsungwale, and the houses are complete. My question is, why are those houses not officially opened and given to the beneficiaries? Tualumba, thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would also like to thank you, Honorable Senator Rebecca Fanwell, for the question that why and when are we going to officially hand over the houses for Binga flood victims. Mr. President, the 37 units have been completed, and guided by our Zimbabwe Human Settlement policy that says we should provide all the services before any occupation of any houses. The issue with the Binga houses is that we are waiting to complete 20 toilets for the 37 houses which are now complete. However, the challenge was the resources to complete those ablution facilities. But I would like to promise the Honorable Senator that the Treasury have availed the funds to complete the ablution facilities. I cannot say the exact date to commission the houses, but it won't be the end of the year. I might say maybe 3 or 4 months will be, the ablution facilities will be completed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Supplementary, Chief Siansali.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is common knowledge that if a house is not occupied, it falls on its own. Are we then not risking losing the 37 houses at the expense of only 20 toilets? Cannot you have a better solution to it? I thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Honorable Chief Siansale. for the question. The ministry has got a maintenance team which is on the ground and looking after those 37 houses. And we cannot hand over the houses to the beneficiaries before we finish the ablution facilities, because we are running away of an open defecation where people just will be going in the bush to relieve themselves, and that will be a disaster. As the ministry, we are trying to accommodate the people who are affected by the disaster of floods. It cannot be proper for us to hand over those 37 houses without the ablution facilities, because there might be outbreak of diseases such as cholera and other diseases if we can let them use the bush as their substitute ablution facilities. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The Honorable Senator Chakabuda.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for according me this opportunity. Mr. President, we have the African Cup, National Cup qualifiers currently underway, and the Zimbabwe national football team is taking part. But sadly, we will only be able to watch it on TV, as there are no stadiums that are approved to host international matches in Zimbabwe. My question, Mr. President, is what is the ministry doing to ensure that the country's stadiums are upgraded to international standards, considering that it has been quite a while since the stadiums have been banned from hosting international matches? This will help promote football in the country, a sport that has qualified, uplifted many previously underprivileged children to greater heights. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Senator. Which minister are you asking?
Minister of Sport.
Can I see? I can't see the Minister of Sport.
Or anybody to answer that. Question conflict. Leader of the government in the House can answer one. Leader of the government. Oh. Somebody from President can appoint anybody to
Point
answer.
of order. Point of order.
Point of order, Honorable Chawang.
There is a motion already on that, which has been presented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, but I was asking, is there any minister who wants to respond to that? Honorable Chakabuda, unfortunately, no minister here is willing to put his head on the block. And you may take your seat. I haven't finished.
Okay.
Switch off your mic, please. And I've just been advised by the clerk, and Honorable Senator Chavangu has also confirmed that a motion is coming next week, which is going to cover all the issues which you have raised. And we hope after the robust debate which will take place, the relevant minister will come and respond. I think it's a very topical issue. It's embarrassing for us to go and be squatters in Uganda, South Africa, all over the shore, when we have got our own facilities in this country. I agree with you 100%. Thank you. The next question on my list is the Honorable Senator Chawangu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My question, I will pose it to the Deputy Minister of Justice. Riding on the principle of effectiveness and fairness of the justice system, what measures is the ministry taking to expedite the trial processes and to ensure timely judgments in the criminal cases so that victims can achieve closure?
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I also want to thank the Honorable Senator Chabangu for that question. As the Minister of Justice, the matter you have raised is under the purview of the Judicial Service Commission, where magistrates or judges or adjudicators have to deliberate on issues expeditiously, I agree. However, in that regard, it remains the discretion or under the purview of the judiciary or judges or adjudicators to deal with the matter. And at times, as the ministry, we cannot interfere with the judiciary. The judiciary is independent. It has to exercise their discretion in dealing with matters. In other instances, we can have a situation whereby lawyers might come with postponements. That is their rights. We also have to balance the two. So judges or adjudicators do have the discretion. It is under the purview of judiciary, which we cannot interfere much, but we can interfere in that regard. So I hope we have been answered in that regard.
Thank you. Honorable Gotora, then Senator Manyengawana.
Senator Vumo.
Senator?
Vumo.
Vumbo.
Vumo.
Senator Manyengawana is on your right.
Thank you.
Okay, Vumbo. Vumo. Sorry? I think I had mentioned your name and not written it down. So I've just written it down. Now you may take your seat. This time I will not forget you. So the Honorable Senator Gotora.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for allowing me to pose my question to the Deputy Minister of Finance. I happen to come from an area where there is serious black granite mining in the country. And we believe we are making a lot of money for the state from our resources. My question is, there is a 2% levy which is in the current Finance Act. How is that levy going to benefit the road street councils or the communities where mining is taking place? Like for instance, if you go to Wage, there's the same problem with the coal miners. And talk to the coal miners or the black granite miners, they just don't listen. And yet there is a Finance Act, which in my opinion is very legal. When and how is that provision in the Finance Act going to be made use of, and who is responsible? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Indeed, this same August House, in the 2023 budget, approved that the Ministry of Finance and its revenue collection mandate collect 1%, actually not 2%, from those mining granite, black and the other types of granite, which pot of money would then go directly to the communities where the mining is taking place. It was supposed to be a special tax just for this particular type of mining. Treasury has indeed been collecting, but I must say the modalities of how it is to be dispersed to the communities have not been mapped out, and it is something that we're still working on a framework for, but these have been ring-fenced, these funds are available, and at the appropriate time when the framework is in place, whether it is money that is going to the district councils, or if there is going to be a provincial or district council put in place, I'm not entirely sure how that will be constituted. It's a discussion that is currently underway, but that the law is enforced and that it is being collected. The last leg is the allocation of such resources. So the Honorable Senator can take comfort in knowing that we are indeed collecting. What now needs to happen is to map out how we then repatriate the funds to those particular communities. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The Honorable Senator Vumo.
Tinotenda bato wechigaro. Mubvunzo wangu wanga uri kuenda kuna Minister we-Home Affairs, uchinenedzera zvakare kuna Minister of Justice vandaona vari pano. Kumhondoro kwaita dambudziko hombe.
Order. Your question must be directed to one minister. It cannot go to two ministers because Minister of Home Affairs is not here. So are you directing it to the Minister of Justice?
Ndinotenda mubato wechigaro. Mubvunzo wangu ndichaudirecta kuna Minister of Justice.
Proceed.
Tinotenda mubato wechigaro. Kumhondoro kwaita dambudziko rembavha dzemombe. Dambudziko iri rakura zvekuti kutaura kwatiri kuita ndo chinhu chiri kungotaurwa kumhondoro. Tine ward 2 iri kumhondoro mubaira constituency. Tinova nemhuri mbiri, 1 inonzi yekwachipunza yakabirwa mombe dzikavhirwa padanga ipapo. Pasina mazuva matatu mhuri yekwamagengazve iri musemu bhuku rasabhukungodo under Chief Ngezi vakabirwa zvakare mombe 3 dzikavhirwa zvakare pedo nedanga. Mbavha idzi dzine zvivindi zvekuti dzinosiya dzatonyora kuti hai nyama yasara idya henyu haina poison. Saka mubvunzo wangu uri pakuti chii chiri kumbonyatsoitika, kuti ndoupi mutemo uripo. Taimbonzwa kunzi mbavha dzemombe dziri kupiwa 10 years zvichidzika zvichienda mberi, but kukwira kuri kuita macases aya hatina maexamples atiri kunyatsoona embavha dziri kurangwa chaizvo zvekuti dai dzairangwa tingadai tisingaone maonero atiri kuita aya ekuescalata kuri kuita macases aya. Saka naida kubvunzawo kuMinistry of Justice kuti ndoupi mutongo uripo, kana kuti mune mutongo here wakasimba wekuti munhu akabatwa kunzi apa mombe nhasi, vanhu vanenge vanzwa mutongo iwoyo havazokwanisa kuti vapare mhosva iyo zvakare. Ndinotenda mubato wechigaro.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Vumo. 2 issues. That is a law and order issue, and it's the responsibility of Home Affairs. Secondly, it's also very specific. So I'm advising you to put your question in writing and direct it to the Minister of Home Affairs. Thank you. Honorable Senator Moyo.
Ngiyabonga Qinisihlalo wedala eliphezulu. Umbuzo wami uzoqondana lo Minister wama youth. Singabazali ngethemba sonke silapha sinabantwana abahambe ezikolo bagraduate after 3 months, abanye la kusasa bagraduate. Abatholi imisebenzi. Silabantwana asebephenduke abamantombazana bathengisa imizimba ngokuswela imisebenzi. So umbuzo wami uthi khona ngasinanzelela futhi ngakangena embuzweni ukuthi sinabantwana abanengi abanatho okudakayo ngendlela ukuthi abalamsebenzi. Labantwana abanengi asebephenduke baba ngamasela ngenxa since baba yibo abalamsebenzi. So umbuzo wami ukuthi njengominister we-youth ikuyini okuphathela abazali okuzamayo ukuthi abantwana bathole imisebenzi. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you. I don't know whether the minister has understood the question. There was no translation. But I presume you have understood the question?
I only understood the final part of the question. Translation came in late. But if I'm correct, Mr. President, it's to do with the plans that the ministry or the government has towards young people who are unemployed, some who are graduates as well.
Is that correct, Honorable Senator Mo? Proceed, Minister.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. As the Ministry of Youth, our chief role is to empower young people in Zimbabwe, especially targeting those who do not make it through the traditional school path, as well as those who are graduates, as the Honorable Senator has mentioned. And in that role, what we focus on is vocational training skills. In that, we equip young people with vocational skills so that they are able to get employment or even create employment for themselves. As for our graduates, there are plans in place that involve us coming together with the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, and we are already working on pushing our graduates towards the Ministry of Finance, which has a National Venture Capital Fund, which can help young people. We also have the youth service in Zimbabwe, whereby young people are given civic education, orientation, as well as skills training, and become a priority to be absorbed by the public sector. Mr. President, let me also say that Vision 2030, as well as NDS 1, mandates all ministries, departments, and government agencies to create pathways for young people to be able to enter and contribute to their economy. As such, we also have existing relationships with the Ministry of Agriculture in terms of allowing young people to start projects in agriculture. We are working on a sensible modality with the Ministry of Mines, and we're at advanced stages with the Ministry of Transport, but this is more leaning towards projects that young people can start. But with youth service, we have a pathway in which we have been mandated, and other ministries have been mandated to absorb these young people after they have completed their course. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Order. In terms of standing order number 67, time for questions without notice has expired. And in terms of standing order number 67, we go to questions with notice. Minister of Finance, are you ready?
Mr. President, sir, I ask that the question from Senator Pula be deferred to the next session so I can prepare a comprehensive response to that. My apologies, Mr. President.
Okay. So question number 1 is deferred.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Point of order.
If Mr. President, you notice that question has been pending since June.
Since June.
I won't insist on it, but I hope the Honorable Minister will make a point in the next session, not to have it lying in the order paper for another year, for another 12, 6 or so months.
Thank you. I'm sure the Minister has taken note of that. Ministers, you must respond to questions which are with notice. In your ministries, you have got some persons who are designated to look at these questions. So it's your responsibility to come into the chamber and answer the questions. So question number 1 is deferred. Minister of Finance, ensure that next week you answer. Number 2, deferred. Number 3, deferred. And number 4, deferred. Belated notice of motion. Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to move a motion that this House take note of the reports of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission for the 3rd of February 2024, 9 March 2024, 6 April 2024, and 27 April 2024 by-elections presented to this House of Parliament in terms of Section 241 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which states that in addition to the report is required to submit in terms of Section 323, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission must without delay and through the appropriate minister submit a report to the Parliament on the conduct of every election and every referendum. I submit.
Thank you. Any further notice of motion?
Indeed. I once again, Mr. President, rise to move a motion that this House take note of the reports of Zimbabwe Electoral Commission for the 2nd of October 2023 runoff elections, 11 November 2023, 2nd December 2023, and 9 December 2023 by-elections presented to this House of Parliament in terms of Section 241 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which states that in addition to the report is required to submit in terms of Section 323. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission must, without delay and through the appropriate minister, submit a report to Parliament on the conduct of every election and every referendum. I submit, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are you done?
Yes, I'm done, Mr. President.
Thank you. The clerk will read the first order of the day.
Urgent debate on motion on the benchmark visit report by the Zimbabwean Parliamentary caucus.
When this debate was adjourned on the 11th of September 2024, the question before the House was a motion by Honorable Senator Mbowa that this House takes note of the report of the benchmark visit by the Zimbabwe Parliamentary Caucus on advocacy on anti-corruption, electoral reforms, and the operations of the Seychelles Women's Parliamentary Caucus in advancing gender equality, held from the 1st to the 9th of June 2024. Is there any further debate? The Honorable Senator Mlochwa, then Senator Chakabuda after that.
Thank you, Mr. President, for affording me this opportunity to add my voice on this debate brought in by Senator Mboa. Mr. President, I stand before you today to express my heartfelt appreciation to the Parliamentary Committee Caucus for their tireless effort in conducting and presenting the report on their recent trip to Seychelles. This committee has shown exemplary commitment to our parliamentary duties, and it is vital that we recognize their work, which not only enhances our understanding of international best practices, but also informs our legislative agenda here at home. Seychelles, Mr. President, often celebrated as a beacon of progress and innovation, provides us with valuable insights into various aspects of governance, economics, and social development. However, what stands out the most during our discussion about Seychelles is their admirable track record in gender equality and empowerment. As we're all aware, gender equality is not just a matter of social justice. It is a crucial drive of our sustainable development and economic progress. Seychelles has made significant strides in promoting the rights and opportunities of women, ensuring that they not only participants in, but also leaders in our societies. Their commitment to gender equality is reflected in various policies and initiatives that have been systematically integrated into their national development strategies. Mr. President, from our discussions within the committee, it was enlightening to learn how Seychelles has implemented a comprehensive framework that supports women participation in politics, in business, and in community life. Their representation of women in government bodies is among the highest in the region, serving as an inspiring model for us as we strive to increase women's representation in our own legislative assembly. The Seychelles experience teaches us that gender equality is achievable when there is political will, public awareness, and the necessary structures in place to support it. They have established mentorship programs for younger women, encouraging them to take on a leadership role early in their careers, and have enacted policies that provide parental leave and affordable child care to foster great work-life balance. These initiatives not only empower women, but also contribute to healthier and more equitable societies. As we move forward in our legislative responsibilities, I urge all of us to take lessons from Seychelles. Let us commit to ourselves to fostering a more inclusive environment that champions gender equality. We must reassess our policies, ensuring that they meet the needs of all citizens, regardless of gender. Together, we can create a society and men are given equal opportunities to excel and lead. In conclusion, Mr. President, let us extend our gratitude to the committee for shedding light on the potential lessons we learn from Seychelles. Their efforts provide us with practical guidance and inspiration as we work to build a more equitable and just society for our people. It is my hope that we can take these insights to heart and implement meaningful changes that enhance the role of women in every sector of our nation. I thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, these are the proceedings coming to you live from the Senate session that is currently underway, as we have promised you that, of course, the ministers will be responding to questions that were being asked by various senators. And to give you a breakdown of some of the issues that were discussed this afternoon, as we drew near at the end of the Senate session, we had issues around what is being done for the young people, especially for them to be employed, those who need to attend vocational training centers. And the government did respond to say that so much has been put in place as the Ministry of Youth Empowerment is indeed rolling out programs that are meant to empower young people in terms of projects, in terms of their capacity to do various projects, how to do loan application, and so much being done in that regard. And apart from that, issues also around stock theft have been talked about, citing issues in Mondoro, and we've heard that this is quite a specific issue that requires the Senate to write it down and we get an appropriate response from the responsible minister. And of course, yes, these are some of the issues that indeed took a center stage on today's Senate session. But yes, from myself, Ian Wambe, the entire crew behind the scenes, stay tuned to ZBC TV.